Hello everyone and welcome to my little corner of the internet. My name's Michael and I'm bitten by a radioactive book. Today I'm here to bring you another book haul. And you would say, didn't you bring us a 50 book haul in like April? Yeah, I did that. And I've bought more books. And to show you how crazy I am, I just prepared all the books for this video. And I counted the books and counted the individual books. I bought some omnibuses, you will see, and some bind-ups. And in the end, I've reached a total of 49 books. So right before I started filming, I bought another one. So I can bring you a 50 book haul. Let's get started. We're kicking this off with a trilogy by Dave Duncan. It's a classical, it's called The Seventh Sword, and it's made up of The Reluctant Swordsman. This is the first book. The Coming of Wisdom is the second, and The Destiny of the Sword is the third one. Careful here. It is about Wally, and it's a classical portal fantasy. Wally is in pain, he's in a hospital, and when he goes to sleep, he apparently wakes up in the body of a barbarian warrior in kind of a fantasy world, and he's accompanied by a priest and a slave girl. There is a goddess, and she's in need of a swordsman, and apparently Wally is that swordsman. So that's all I know about it. Sounds interesting, is a classic. Let's see. Next up we have Sephiroth's Hand by Melissa McPhail. It's the first installment in her A Pattern of Shadow and Light series. I know next to nothing about it. Caitlin recommended the books. Apparently it's like a multi-point of view kind of thing. A prince seeking vengeance for the killing of his sworn blood brother. There is an older warrior veteran character apparently that's looking for the shadows of his past. Sounded interesting. As I said, was a recommendation. I bought it. Next up we have Aces Abroad by George R. R. Martin and a lot of other writers. It's the fourth installment in the Wildcard series. The Wildcard series is basically a superhero series that is very character focused, and the books are always made up by short stories of various authors that are somehow interconnected. So they talk about a mosaic kind of thing. And apparently all the books, there is already like 20 or more books out in this series, and it's running since the 80s, I think, early 80s. And now the books all are getting like new covers by Tor, and yeah, are like re-released, and they have been adopted for a TV show. So if you want to hop on the next big thing before it actually becomes the next big thing, here's your chance. And apparently I did. I have read the first one, bought the second and the third one, and the fourth one was available for less than €2, so I bought it. If you remember my last videos, I am on the verge of getting into the Warhammer universes, both the fantasy and the 40k universe, so I got a few books in this regard, and the first one is The War of Vengeance. It's from the Time of Legends period. Apparently, if I get this right, there's like in the Warhammer world, there is the normal timeline, and then there's like the past, which is the Time of Legends. I hope I get that right. And the Time of Legends explains like events in the world that have been significant. And one of these events is the War of Vengeance, apparently a conflict between the dwarves and the elves, the High Elves specifically, I think. And yeah, this is like a whole trilogy inside one bind-up version. It's over 1,000 pages. Yeah, and it has dwarfs in it, and I love dwarfs, so yeah. I bought another Warhammer bind-up. This time it's Warhammer 40k. It's the Space Wolf Omnibus by William King. And yeah, the Space Wolves are like one chapter of the Space Marines, apparently more fierce, Nordic, kind of beliefs, in contrast to the book or the books about the ultramarines I have read, who are very like sticking to the rules. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to explore the various sides of the Warhammer 40k universe. And still being in the Warhammer 40k universe, I bought Xenos. It's the first book in Dan Abnett's apparently like legendary Eisenhorn trilogy. And so I know next to nothing about it. It is more about the Inquisition, or a ship of people of the Inquisition and their adventures. So yeah, let's see what this is all about. Next up, we have a very interesting book. It's, I think, kind of a science fiction cyberpunk book. It's Ghosts of Tomorrow by Michael R. Fletcher. I have 2 books by him unread so far that are like grimdark fantasy, and now he has this one out. He has another book coming out this year, so definitely somebody I want to get to, because he seems to write in various genres that I really enjoy. And he has, yeah, some very unique ideas. I'm going to read you one sentence, and this sentence was so weird that I immediately said I need to pick up this book. People who have that much imagination, I should like reward with buying their books. And the sentence goes like this. Deep in the La Carpio slums of Costa Rica, the scant mind of an autistic girl runs the South American mafia's business interests. Bought it. Next up we have The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski. I think I don't need to tell you a lot about it. It's the first installment in his Witcher series. The video games are actually based on his book series. And as I like the video games, and I just downloaded the Gwent beta to my PS4, yeah, that seemed to be like a good companion novel. If you've seen my currently reading video yesterday, I talked about Marauder by Ellen McNeil, another indie author that I found, or that found me, I have to say. Although I bought the book, it's not like a review copy. And this is a very interesting world. She has dragons and airships. That's what I said yesterday in the video, and that convinced me immediately. I love that she has like very unique ideas about races. She's not going like, oh yeah, just throw some elves and dwarves in. Although dwarves are never a bad idea if you have a book, like even if you, I don't know, write contemporary Romans, axe-wielding dwarf in it, I buy it. No, the races in this one are like very unique, shape-shifting races, things I haven't seen before. The Vakane are like very interesting. She also is very good in diversifying the races, that you don't only get the trait of, oh, like everybody looks the same. You, or for I think almost all the races, you get like at least 2 examples, or it's told of that they have various factions and stuff like that, so that makes them more believable and makes this less racial. So that is something I really enjoyed, and it's a very fast-paced and action-adventure read. I will tell you more about it in a review that is upcoming as soon as I finish the book. Next up we have Spellsinger by Alan Dean Forster. It's a classical portal fantasy as well, I think with a little bit of a humorous touch. I didn't put on the rather boring Kindle book version cover that I actually bought, but the cover that convinced me to buy the book, and this is I think the 1998 mass market paperback version. And you can see why I love it. There's this turtle up there, and I want to know what's up with that turtle. I don't care about the rest, I just want to read about the turtle, if I'm honest. And apparently the turtle is a wizard, and his world is in need of help, and so he gets a college student. That's a great idea. I've been at university so long, I would have rocked that fantasy world. I would be So helpful with all my skins of being lazy. Skills, not skins. Moving on. Next up we have The Quantum Thief by Hanu Rananyemi. I have no idea what this is about, but all the people that read the book said, oh, it's rather complicated, but it's brilliant, and it's, I think, kind of a cyberpunk as well, so I want to find out what this is all about. Speaking of weird science fiction, I bought The Clockwork Rocket, the first installment in Greg Egan's Orthogonal series. This is set on a distant planet, and I think the protagonists are not like human, and the protagonists maybe, or I don't know, they have some plant, yeah, I don't know, kind of features in them, and so there's photosynthesis going on, and it seems all like very, very weird. And Yalda, the main character, works on a farm, and there's apparently some kind of meteor shower bringing some special material to the planet. It seems to be a very like hard sci-fi, sciencey book, but it was weird enough for me to not be put off by that fact, and so yeah, let's see what this is all about. Next up we have The Heart of What Was Lost. Not The Shadow of What Was Lost, which is a book I had in the last book haul, so I have to keep that apart. No, it's actually like the book that binds Tad Williams' Memory, Sorrow and Thorn books, like the original trilogy, quartet, whatever you will, to the new series, where the new book, the first one in the new trilogy, I assume, or quartet with Tad Williams, to be perfectly honest, has come out, I think, today. I think today is the release date. And so before that there was some kind of binding novella, and I bought that. Next up we have The Stormcaller by Tom Lloyd. It's the first installment in his The Twilight Reign books. This is a concept where gods seem to have abandoned a world. In this world we have like white eyes, people with genetic powers, but it's like a fantasy world, and yeah, I want to find out how all of this works together, and I want to read a little bit of Tom Lloyd, because I think he's like a very interesting author. He is also, if I remember correctly, the one that turned out to be behind the pen name of KJ Parks. So that is interesting, and we'll see a book by KJ Parks, no, KJ Parker, sorry, and we will see a book by KJ Parker later in this haul as well. Next up, another book that you saw in my currently reading video already. It's Godblind by Anna Stevens. This is more of a grimdark Nordic tribal kind of society, where one society believes in the red gods, and in the name of their gods they want to conquer others. I'm 4% into the book, so I can't tell you much about it. That's the gist. Another book in the same vein is Winterbirth by Brian Ruckley, but this is already a concluded trilogy called The Godless World, and I know next to nothing about it, but I think the things like a Nordic society, a grimdark, it's pretty much like the same kind of ideal, and I really like the blurb on the cover. It sounds so cliche-y that I had to buy this. It is a world of ice. It is a world of blood. It is a godless world. Coming to a Kindle near you this summer. Now, normally I turn up books pretty good on my own, but this time I can blame Samantha from Sam's Nonsense, because I've bought the first 2 installments in E.E. Knight's Dragon series, which is called The Age of Fire, and the first one is Dragon Champion, and the second one is Dragon Avenger, or Avenger, how you want to pronounce it, if you can speak the language properly. Uh, so this is a very interesting series because the protagonists are actually dragons, and it is about a grey dragon, I think, and he's looking for his family, his tribe, or something like that. So I actually haven't read something like this where really the protagonists are dragons. So that sounds interesting, and I'll want to give it a go. Then I bought another bind-up version of books that I already own in German and read like ages ago. It's the second and third installment in Raymond Feast original Rift War saga. It's Silverthorn and A Darkness at Sathanon, and I wanted to reread like The Magician or Magician for quite some time, and wanted to like conclude like the whole trilogy, and now I bound these two as well in English. And yeah, if I like what I read on my reread, I might go deep and do like the whole 30 book series. So we'll see about that. Another book recommendation that I got quite often in the past was Kushiel's Dart by Jacqueline Curry. This is a book I know next to nothing about. I know that it has elements of erotica, even SM in it. It's about a slave girl, I think. It's more in terms of like a Robin Hobbish, very character-driven narrative, and there were like lots of people that said, yeah, this is one of my favorite books, one of my favorite trilogies, and I've never read it. I've read one book by Jacqueline Curry so far, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I wanted to give that a go. Next up we have Geomancer, the first installment in Ian Irvine's Well of Echoes series. I don't know if it's a trilogy, I think it's 4 books. Here we have humans that are, I think, tinkering with clockwork machinery, and they are in a battle against the Lyrings, and the Lyrings are like winged predators, intelligent winged predators. Dragons? I don't know. Yeah, and one of the our main protagonist, Tian, is, I think, accused of sabotage or something like that, falsely accused, and she has to flee, and yeah, from there on out, this series spans out, and it sounded interesting. I love the cover styles, and so that was actually like a cover buy for me. I saw that cover, I saw like the whole series of covers, and I was like, yeah, I'm interested to read that. And then if like good advice maybe for authors looking for that. For me, if I already like the cover, I'm like, if I read it and what I read does not suck, I buy the book. With other book, it might be more like, oh, what I read needs to convince me. But if I'm already on board because I really enjoy the cover, then it like, oh, if it not sucks, then I read it. Next up we have another bind-up version. I talked about this already in my currently reading video. I've never read the His Dark Materials books by Philip Pullman. I think I don't need to explain what this series is about because everyone except of me seems to know it. I know that some people actually haven't read it, saw the comments on my video from yesterday. Yeah, I bought a bind-up version of the trilogy. I had this already like as a box set, as a physical set, but I bought this version for my Kindle, and now I'm reading it, so yay me. Then I also bought the second, third, and fourth installment in Rod Reese's Demimon series. I haven't read the first one yet, but I was always interested in it, and I have the first one for quite some time already, and the whole series seems to be on sale, so I got the 3 books for under €4, So I think between €5 or €6 you have to pay for to get like the whole trilogy or the whole quartet on Kindle, and it's a very interesting dimension hopping series, or people getting trapped in a kind of hellish dimension, the demimonde, which was created, I don't know, by scientists, and they sent like every bad person of human history there. So there's like Hitler, Genghis Khan, I don't know, you name every war criminal that you can think of. All of them are on this hellish kind of world, and I think the main protagonist's daughter gets lost there, or wife, I don't know, and yeah. So that seems like a really interesting and unique world building thing. There seem to be steampunk elements in it, so yeah, naturally all of that speaks to me. And then I was craving some steampunk, or even more steampunk. I bought The Friday Society by Adrian Kress. It's, I think it's a standalone book, and that's quite rare. And as you can see on the cover, it's about 3 female protagonists, Cora, a lab assistant, Michiko, a martial arts fighting assistant, and Nell, I think Nell or Nelly, who's a magician's assistant, and they meet up at some kind of ball, and there's a murder mystery, and yeah, all of that sounded very interesting, and kick-ass female protagonists on the cover. And as I made the good experience of checking out Alan McNeil's book Moroder, I thought to look into some other indie titles as well. The first one I bought is The Crown of Stones, the first installment in C.L. Schneider's Magic Prize series. There is an interesting concept where magic is actually like an addiction for certain people, or maybe even a race of people, and they are enslaved. Their magic is suppressed by drugs, and then they're used to fight the wars of their masters. And I think the book is about one of them who fought a war, won the war, is retired, then another threat comes up again, something like that. Yeah, and I like the whole concept, the whole idea. The cover art, I think, for an indie title is very, very good, and so I bought it. Another indie book I bought is The Blood-Tainted Winter, the first installment in T.L. Greylock's The Song of the Ash Tree series. Another more grimdark, Nordic kind of themed book. I think the main character, Ref, wants to go on raids on his ship, but his father does not allow it, and then the king dies, and Ref is like torn between what his father wants him to be and what he wants to do with going on his own adventures. And yeah, that sounded interesting, and I wanted to give this a go. Another example of you can have great cover art when you are an indie author. And the third book I got, and this was free, the first one in the series is a free book, is The Destroyer by Michael Scott Earl. The title, of course, is like, yeah, The Destroyer, and look at the cover, this guy. But it had me interested because there's a group of people that look for somebody that they see as the possible rescue. So I don't know, they resurrect him, or he's like buried somewhere and they kind of get him back. He might be imprisoned, I don't know. And this guy has the potential to destroy the world as well. So the group doesn't really know if they are reawakening kind of the savior, or as the title suggests, the destroyer. And I like that idea, so we'll see how it goes. Next up we have Valley of Embers, the first installment in Stephen Collier's The Landkist Saga. It is pitched as Princess Mononoke meets Avatar: The Last Airbender. So if you're into that, that might be interesting. The Embers, I think, are yeah, like fire-wielding guardians, and they guard a lake, a country, a nation against yeah, some nightmare creatures. And then there's like rumor that like an evil lord has risen, so there seem to be like very classical elements. I'm very interested to see how like the Eastern mythology elements are built in there, because that is I think a field of books or of mythology that has a large potential to get bigger and bigger in the next upcoming years, because people like to see something else next to medieval knightly fantasy. I talked to this about this to Caitlin from Kitty G like a couple of days ago, and we were both like very yeah, convinced that that is something that we'll see more of in the future, and the both of us want to seek out more of this kind of more Eastern flavored literature in fantasy. Next up, we have The Court of Broken Knives by Anna Smith Spark. This is another highly anticipated grimdark novel, and if you are following various authors on Twitter, you're going to see that Mark Lawrence is retweeting the hell out of this book, and some other people are as well. And like another tip for authors, if your writing is like really good, just put something of it in the blurb. I'm just reading you the first paragraph, and I still don't know what the book is actually about, but I read this and I was like, yes, I want to read from an author who writes like this. And it goes like, they finally looked at the graveyard of our empire with open eyes. They're fools and madmen, and like the art of war. And the children go hungry while we piss gold and jewels into the dust. It's the writing. The writing got me, bought the book. Next up, I bought Dice the Fire by S.M. Stirling, the first installment in his Emberverse series, another large dystopian series that I have heard about a lot in the past already, but never like read it myself. This is like a post I don't know if it's really a post-apocalyptical world, or more a world along the line that technology ceased to function, which reminds me on a TV show that NBC had on a couple of years ago, and I'm blanking on the name. Yeah, that's great preparation again. Revolution, it was called. Yeah, and this is a very interesting concept, because I think I've shied away from dystopia, because dystopia has become the synonym of teenagers falling in love and fighting each other for, I don't know, whatever. And the thing that fascinates me mostly about dystopia is actually what happens to society, and not that much like are characters falling in love. If I want to read about characters falling in love, I can read like contemporary romans with axe-wielding dwarfs in it. So I want to read a dystopia that has the really like ramifications of what happens to society, and I really hope that this book and this series is for me and talks a lot about this. So yeah, I'm really excited for it. Next up, we have The Folding Knife by K.J. Parker. I talked about K.J. Parker being the pen name of Tom Lloyd before, and K.J. Parker, or The Folding Knife, is a book about a character who seems to be like very intelligent, very, yeah, spins a lot of intrigues, as a mastermind, but at some point in his past he did a mistake or made a mistake, and apparently that catches up to him, and that sounds like an intriguing and unique idea. And as I like to blame Samantha a lot, there's another book that I blame totally on her. It's Dragon Prince by Melanie Raw. She said it is also more of a classical fantasy with some kind of cliches, but also it has a very unique setting, a desert setting, dragons in it, yeah, Dragon Prince, whatever, Michael. Way to go. And yeah, she recommended it. She said she thinks that I might like it. I hope it's something along the line of the old D&D campaign set, Dark Sun, which I really enjoyed and have read some mediocre books, I think, but I enjoyed them when I read them, and yeah, so I hope this is good as well. Speaking of Melanie Ron, of course I saw that she has another series out there, The Glass Thorns, and I bought the first book, which is called Touchstone, and that sounds interesting because it mixes epic fantasy with theater, because the main protagonist is like obsessed with theater and he plays in a troupe and the troupe travels the land, and so he gets into kind of the intrigues or the story and the plot. Sounds interesting, sounds unique, and yeah, as Samantha had already recommended the author, so I thought like, oh, let's get into both of her series. Next up we have Soul of the World, the first installment in David Mealing's Ascension Cycle. This is the book that came actually out today, so it's a brand new release, and it has all the elements of a typical epic fantasy, multi-POV narrative structure. We have a young girl, a street artist, we have a magic wielder living in the forest, we have a colonel on the battlefield. So all the ingredients and characters that we of the epic fantasy like and enjoy are there. No idea about the plot, but yeah, I was intrigued and I bought it. I also bought a book that I'm pretty sure that I own in German and bought like, I don't know, 2.5 decades ago. It's Sweet Silver Blues, the first installment in Glenn Cook's Garrett P.I. series. Glenn Cook is actually mostly known for his The Black Company series, one of the first real big grimdark works. Yeah, apparently he has like a dark, humorous noir series with his fantasy detective Garrett P.I. And yeah, I wanted to read that because if it's like good, because it seems to be like a grimdark Discworld version. I think it's not as like humorously light, but yeah, I could be mistaken. And come on, look at the cover. There's this gnome with the machine gun. It's like the other cover with the turtle. What was up with those covers in the 80s and 90s, and where are these covers now? Put on a gnome with a machine gun fighting a turtle on the cover, and your book could be a contemporary love story with an axe-wielding dwarf, and I would still buy it just for the cover. Next up, we have Bitter Seeds, the first installment in Ian Tregillis's Milkweed Triptych series. This is a very interesting concept. World War II alternate reality setting. Apparently the Germans have found like genetic mutations, some kind of superhero warriors, and the British are trying to counter that with tapping into dark magical forces. And we're seeing that from, I think, the perspective of the British. I don't know if there's like a German perspective in it as well. That would be like awesome to see both sides, but I'm not sure. Yeah, and that is like a very unique idea, and I know Ian Tregillis is writing from his other series, the Clockwork series, and I'm blanking on the name. I'm so good. I put it in the, you know. And I liked his writing, so I bought this. Speaking of alternate reality, we have Breath of Earth by Beth Cato, the first installment in her Blood of Earth series. Um, this is an alternate, I think, 19th century where the US and Japan have like some kind of an alliance going on and kind of merging into one huge Pacific nation, and they're threatening China. Apparently there's like magic in this world, geomantic magic, so that ties in a little bit to the to N.K. Jemisin's book series that I'm reading at the moment. And apparently the main character in this is a secretary of some like powerful mages, and they get attacked by other forces, and she apparently has power as well and escapes, and yeah, from there on out she's involved in that conflict between China, the US, Japan, and yeah, it sounded very interesting, something different, and I bought it. Another book I'm really excited for is Heron Complex by Sarah Kuhn. This is a book about female teenage superheroes or female superheroes in San Francisco, and apparently it's about Evie Tanaka, and she is like the personal assistant to the superhero Avida Jupiter. And it's about their adventures, and that sounded like a fresh idea, like a good idea, and I wanted to read something like this. And if the good thing is it's the first installment, and the second book comes out July the 4th, so if I like it I can directly continue with the series. Next up we have another book by E.E. Knight, the one of the dragon books that we had before, but this time it's his even larger series. It's Vampire Earth, which is a near future series in set in Louisiana, I think, in New Orleans. Here vampires have overrun the world, and they're yeah, enslaved like the human race, and there's like yeah, some resistances still going on, and so it's also like a post-apocalyptic vampire world, and that could be either the worst thing to read ever, or it could be fun. And I hope, because it's a big series that wasn't like shut down immediately after the first book, that it's fun. And yeah, so let's see. So these were the 49 books I had bought like before the video, or when I prepared the video, and the 50th book that I actually bought to make it 50 is Ilium by Dan Simmons, a classical science fiction that I had on my wish list for forever. It's the first in a duology. The second would be Olympus, and yeah, there he has Earth is almost like not inhabited. There's Greek gods, and the Battle of Troja somehow resurfaces on Olympus Mons on Mars. And then there's also like robots, I think, coming in. So there's also a storyline from Jupiter. And so there's, yeah, Jupiter, Mars, Earth are the three storylines that are somehow interconnected. And all of this sounded interesting. Dan Simmons is a great writer. I've read Hyperion and really enjoyed it. So yeah, I bought this. So here you go. I have almost an hour of filmed raw material. I hope I can cut this down to about like 35 minutes. Let's see if that works out in the end. So without further ado, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. If you want to see more of me and axe-wielding dwarfs, subscribe to my channel. And until next time, I hope you get bitten by a really good book too. Bye.